What causes suffering? Let's start with one type of suffering that's pretty straightforward: physical suffering. This happens because you have a nervous system. It's sensitive to touch and signals passing through your body. Some of those signals aren't pleasant, they're painful. When these signals reach your brain, they hurt. That's what physical pain is, physical suffering. So what can you do about it? You already know the basics. You can go to the doctor. You can eat better. You can exercise, stretch, or even do yoga. There are a lot of ways to take care of your body and keep it as healthy as possible. It's not always easy, but there are definitely things you can do to manage it. Of course, there are also things that can make it worse. Bad habits, neglecting your health, or ignoring your body's needs. Some people ask, what if I have chronic pain? What if it's unbearable? And honestly, I feel so much compassion for anyone who's going through that. Sometimes they might need medication, even strong drugs, just to make it through the day. Other times, they might try different methods, holistic remedies, alternative therapies, or anything that could bring some relief. Here's the thing: don't judge people for how they handle physical suffering. Everyone's tolerance for pain is different, and everyone's situation is unique. What matters is doing the best you can to care for your body and keep your nervous system as healthy as possible. The way you handle it is your personal choice. Just take care of yourself in the best way you can. But let me tell you something important. Physical pain is not the biggest source of suffering for most people. Now, the other type of suffering. The real struggle, the deeper kind of suffering, is inner suffering. This includes psychological pain, mental anguish, and emotional hurt. Now, pay attention to this part, because it's life-changing. You have complete control over your inner suffering. Yes, 100% control. You are both the cause of it and the solution to it. But here's the problem. Most people don't want you to know that. They'll tell you that your mental and emotional suffering is caused by the world around you. They'll blame it on other people, on bad experiences from years ago, or on things outside your control. And sure, those things can influence your suffering. I'm not saying they don't matter, but here's the truth. They don't have to keep hurting you. They don't have to define your life. That's the beautiful thing. You don't have to suffer. Not like that. Are you hearing me? You don't have to live in emotional pain, no matter what's happened to you. Now, we've studied physical suffering, haven't we? We've learned so much about how the body works, how nerves, chemicals, and signals create pain. And because of that understanding, we've found ways to manage it. Well, inner suffering has been studied too. For thousands of years, wise teachers and great minds, like the Buddha, have explored it deeply. The Buddha's first noble truth is this: all life is suffering. That's how important this topic is. It's one of the first things spiritual traditions address. But here's the good news. You can study your inner suffering too. Why? Because you're living it. You're the one experiencing it. And since you're the one inside your mind and emotions, you have the power to change it. Listen carefully to this. You do not have to suffer. Not mentally, not emotionally, not in that way. You can free yourself from inner suffering if you understand what's causing it, and take responsibility for your own healing. The choice is yours. Take the time to understand yourself. Learn about your inner world just like you'd study your physical health. And when you do, you'll see that freedom from suffering is possible. You do not have to suffer. You do not have to suffer. Period. let's talk about what causes suffering, especially in today's world. Take something like an election, for example. Some people were thrilled with the results, while others were upset. Same election, but very different reactions. Why? It's because we all have preferences and expectations. We walk into situations with our own ideas of how things should go. That's where the trouble starts. There's an old teaching from the third Zen patriarch. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. Imagine you approach an event like a curious visitor from another planet, with no expectations or opinions about what should happen. You just observe everything with openness and fascination. Now, here's the key idea. If you didn't have preferences, you wouldn't suffer. Sure, you might feel disappointment, but even that comes from having expectations. Think about it. How does disappointment happen? It's because you appointed something to happen a certain way, and when it didn't, you felt let down. So, that's the root of suffering, preferences and expectations. Now, let's go a step further. Where do these preferences come from? You might think you came up with them on your own, but that's not true. Your preferences have been programmed into you, much like a computer is programmed with the lines of code. Your experiences, good and bad, have shaped how you see the world. Maybe your parents treated you a certain way, or you lost something or someone important to you. All of these events left an imprint on you, shaping your expectations and reactions. The point isn't to say you should never care about anything, but to understand that letting go of rigid preferences can ease suffering. Psychology often says a person is the sum of their learned experiences. But that's not entirely true. That's not who you really are. What it does describe, however, is your psyche, your mind and emotions, your sense of self, your ego, all your preferences, hopes, dreams, ideas, beliefs and opinions. These parts of you were shaped by your past experiences, programmed into your mind over time. Think of it like a computer. No matter how advanced the computer is, if it doesn't have any data, it knows nothing. The same goes for us. Everything you know or feel comes from something you've taken in. Where did it all come from? Maybe you read a book. You took it in. Or you watched a movie. You took it in. Or you lived through an experience. You took it in. That's how your mind works. But here's the twist. How much do you know about the things you haven't experienced? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, consider this. Every moment of your life, you've had experiences. They're constant, happening one after another. But no one else, not your twin, your parents, your partner, or your children, has had the exact same sequence of experiences as you. No one in history ever has, and no one in the future ever will. Why? Because moments never repeat. Each one is unique. They come, they go, and they keep changing. And the moments you've experienced are only the ones you personally noticed and lived through. Here's the mind-blowing part. How many moments have you not experienced? Think about it. There are billions, even trillions, of things happening all around you that you've completely missed. Your preferences, your thoughts, and your beliefs are based only on the tiny fraction of experiences you've had, like lines of code being written into a program. Each experience adds another line, shaping how you see the world. So now, you understand where your preferences come from. They're not sacred, holy, or evil. They're simply the result of what you've learned and lived through. They're just the sum of your experiences. Nothing more, nothing less. We're entering a world with artificial intelligence that's capable of doing truly incredible things. Imagine if we took every experience you've ever had, every moment you've lived through, and fed it into an I. It would behave just like you. I'm not saying I'll do it, but someone probably will. And the I will act so much like you that it'd be hard to tell the difference. Now, if I change just one of those experiences before feeding it into the I, it wouldn't act exactly the same anymore. That small change would make a difference. The same applies to you. If even one of your past experiences had been different, you wouldn't be the exact same person you are today. This is what I want to show you. How fragile and uncertain your sense of self really is. You believe that what you think is the truth, but it's only true to you because it's based on the unique set of experiences you've had. Think of the most advanced computer in the world. If you only gave it one set of data, it would always give you answers based on that data, because that's all it knows. The same goes for you. Your mind works with the experiences it has, and that's the only data it can use. But let me be clear. You are not just the sum of your learned experiences. Your mind, your emotions, your preferences, and your psyche, yes, they are all the result of your experiences. They were programmed by what you've been through. Psychology understands this. Freud figured it out. What you take in is what comes out. It's cause and effect. But here's the deeper truth. That's not who you are. How do we know? Because you can observe it. You can step back and notice your own mind and emotions reacting to things based on what you've been through. The fact that you can watch this process means you're something more. You're the consciousness behind it all. The awareness observing your thoughts, feelings, and reactions. That consciousness is who you really are. Let's take it a step further. Over time, from all your experiences, you've created a mental framework, a mindset, a way of thinking about the world. But your experiences don't always fit together perfectly. For example, let's say you had a friend named Ben in high school and you really liked him. Later, you married someone named Ben and the marriage didn't work out. Now you have mixed feelings about people named Ben. Your mind has been programmed in all kinds of conflicting and messy ways. And yet you have to live with it. To make sense of it, you take those bits and pieces of your experiences, patch them together and say, this is who I am. You build a sense of self, your ego, from those fragments. But think about this. Have you ever changed your mind about something? Maybe you believed one thing for years, but then you met someone or had an experience that made you see things differently. That's how fragile and changeable this self really is. It's not solid or fixed. Your ego, the you think you are, is just a collection of learned experiences and beliefs stitched together. It feels real, but it's not the whole story. Behind all of that is your true self, the consciousness that watches it all happen. You've created a voice in your head. It's always talking, always telling you what you believe, what you like, what you don't like, what should happen, and what shouldn't. That voice has been shaped by your experiences. It's like a running commentary that feels constant and natural. Where does that voice come from? It's not random. It's been programmed into you. This is why, even though you are not the sum of your learned experiences, the psyche you live with every moment is. Now, you have preferences. You like some things and dislike others. Why is that? Why do you enjoy something that someone else might hate? Why does one person love a certain type of food music, or weather, while someone else can't stand it. It all comes down to experiences. As things from the outside world happen to you, they come into your awareness. Some of those experiences feel good, and some feel bad. Over time, this shapes your preferences. Here's an easy prediction. You prefer that the things that felt good happen again, and you hope the things that felt bad don't happen again. Makes sense, right? It's so simple and logical that it's almost ridiculous. But that's the programming at work. Here's where it gets tricky. Life is constantly happening all around you. People, weather, sounds, cars, clouds, everything. Most of it just passes through your awareness without sticking. Think about it. Do you remember every white line on the road you've ever driven on? Or every single car you've passed but never owned? Probably not. These things just come and go, and they don't leave an impression. But then there are moments, certain experiences, that do stick. They catch your attention. Maybe it's a car you've always wanted, or something that makes you feel a strong emotion. Those moments leave a mark on your psyche, shaping your preferences and beliefs. This is where the voice in your head starts to build its story. It uses these significant experiences as the foundation for what you think, feel, and believe. But here's the truth. Most of what's happening around you, maybe 95% or even 99%, doesn't stick at all. It comes and goes without leaving a trace. The preferences and beliefs you hold on to are based on a tiny fraction of what you have actually experienced. So, while the voice in your head feels like you, it's really just a product of the few things your mind has decided to hold on to. It's not the full picture, and it's certainly not your true self. Instead, it's a creation, shaped by your past, but not the essence of who you truly are. Imagine this scenario. You see a car that looks like your girlfriend's car. Inside, you spot someone leaning over, and it looks like they're snuggling with someone. In reality, they're just picking up a Kleenex. But that's not what your mind saw. That car, that moment, somehow sticks with you. All the other cars, all the people, the clouds and the white lines on the road, they pass by unnoticed. But the moment you see your girlfriend again, that memory of the car will probably come up, and it'll affect how you interact. Why does this happen? Because when something triggers a strong emotional reaction, especially one that doesn't feel good, your mind holds on to it. It's no longer just a car. It becomes something meaningful to you because of how it made you feel. Now let's flip it. There are moments when you're completely open to an experience and it touches you in a deep, beautiful way. Picture turning a corner and seeing the most breathtaking sunset. It takes your breath away, and you feel something so profound that you might describe it as being in the presence of something divine. A hug, a kiss, music, or nature can create this same feeling. These moments feel extraordinary because you let them in. You don't block them or resist them. They pass through your senses, move through your psyche without hitting any walls, and go straight to the core of your being, your soul, your consciousness, the essence of who you truly are. When this happens, it's the most beautiful experience imaginable. There's nothing quite like being touched at the depth of your being. But how often does that happen? Maybe only a few times in your entire life. Why doesn't everything touch you this deeply? The truth is, you don't let it. Most of the time, when something starts to come in and it doesn't feel good, you resist it. You push it away. Think about it. Have you ever felt a difficult emotion or thought and immediately tried to avoid or suppress it? When you resist something, it can't reach the depths of your being. Resistance acts like a wall, stopping anything uncomfortable from going too far inside. And that's the whole purpose of resistance, to keep unpleasant experiences at bay. But this constant resistance is a habit, isn't it? You do it all the time, moment by moment. If something feels bad, your immediate reaction is to push it away. It's a natural form of suppression, but it also blocks you from being fully open and clear. True openness, allowing everything good or bad to flow through you without resistance, is rare. Yet, it's in those moments of openness that you experience the deepest beauty and connection to life. The more you resist, the less life touches you. The more you let go of resistance, the more you allow life to reach the essence of who you truly are. Here is a good phrases to think about is this: I don't want that to have happened. What does it mean to say, I don't want that to have happened? It means something already happened, but you're resisting it. You're wishing reality were different, even though it's not. If it didn't happen, you wouldn't even be thinking about it. But it did happen, and instead of letting it pass through you and be done, you're holding on to it. You can't fully accept it, so you push it away. And this resistance doesn't just happen with big things, it happens all the time. Think about it. How often do you push away small everyday experiences? Maybe it starts raining and you think, I don't want it to rain. Or worse, why does it have to rain on my birthday? But here's the truth. The rain doesn't know it's your birthday. It's just rain. Yet, you resist it because it doesn't match what you wanted. Now, here's the important part. Anything you resist doesn't actually go away. Instead, it stays inside you. Let me put it this way. Every time you push something away, you're essentially storing it inside you. For example, say you were supposed to go camping and it rained. Hours later, you're still on the phone, complaining to a friend about how the rain ruined your trip. Meanwhile, you're not mentioning the other things you experienced, the trees, the clouds, the stars at night. Why? Because those things didn't disturb you. But the rain, it stuck with you. You resisted it, and now it lives in your mind, popping back up whenever something reminds you of it. Here's the key. When you resist something, you create a sort of storehouse inside you. A collection of all the things you didn't want to experience. And guess what? That storehouse doesn't just fade over time. Every disturbance you've ever resisted is still there. Think back to high school. Did you have any awkward or uncomfortable moments? Of course you did. And if you don't believe those moments are still stored inside you, just go to a high school reunion. I promise, when you see certain people, all those old feelings will come right back. You'll remember how they made you feel, good or bad, exactly as if it happened yesterday. Now, this isn't the same thing as regular memory. A computer stores memory too, but it doesn't automatically replay old emotions or opinions about what it remembers. For example, a computer might store a record of every road it's mapped, but it doesn't decide it doesn't like a particular road. Your mind, however, does something different. When you resist an experience, you store more than just the memory of the event. You store the emotional energy of the disturbance itself. This is what yogic philosophy calls samskaras, patterns of blocked energy that didn't get fully processed. Imagine a river that's meant to flow freely. Now picture a dam stopping the water. That's what resistance does. It creates a blockage. The river wants to flow, but the dam holds it back. Similarly, the energy of every experience you resisted is still inside you, waiting for a chance to flow through. Here's a real-life example. Suppose you were at a McDonald's in high school and you spilled ketchup on yourself. Maybe other kids laughed at you, and you felt embarrassed. Now, years later, you might drive past a McDonald's, and suddenly that memory and the uncomfortable feelings come rushing back. That's not just pure memory. It's a samskara. These samskaras aren't harmless. They affect how you experience life. Every time you resist something, you're adding to this storehouse of unresolved energy. Over time, it can feel heavy, overwhelming, or even shape how you see yourself in the world. The lesson here is simple. Let experiences pass through you. Don't resist them. Whether it's rain on your birthday or an awkward moment from years ago, let it flow like the river instead of building a dam. The more you let go, the freer you'll feel. Now, you have something incredibly powerful inside you. Your will. This is your ability to make decisions and take actions, both internally and externally. You use your will to control your body, like lifting your arm, and you use it in your mind to push things away. Your will is an expression of your consciousness. Imagine willpower as concentrated energy. Just like sunlight can be focused through a magnifying glass to ignite a leaf, your will is a focused form of consciousness. This focus gives you the ability to control how you respond to life. However, this same willpower is often used to block experiences and energy that are trying to flow through you. Here's how it works. Life happens, and energy flows through you. When you don't like something, an event, a feeling, or even a thought, you resist it. You say, "No, I don't want this." That resistance acts like a dam, stopping the natural flow of energy. But energy doesn't just disappear because you resisted it. Instead, it gets trapped. It starts circling around itself, staying stuck inside you. This is what yogic teachings call a samskara, a stored pattern of blocked energy. This resistance is what creates inner suffering. Think about it. Life is always happening around you. It rains, there's traffic. These are just events. But when you resist these events, when you fight against the reality of what's happening, you create unnecessary struggle inside yourself. Now, the first step is always acceptance. Accept that the event occurred, because there's no way to undo it. Resisting reality, saying, "I don't want that to have happened," is pointless because it already happened. You're an intelligent person. You know you can't change the past. What you do next is your choice, but refusing to accept reality only creates unnecessary suffering. Every time you resist an experience, you're essentially storing that blocked energy inside you. Over time, these stored samskaras pile up, and they don't stay quiet. They come back up, disturbing your peace. This is why a small event, like rain on a camping trip, might still bother you hours or even years later. You didn't let it pass through you. You resisted it, and now it's stuck. Life is full of events, big and small. Some will feel good and others won't. But the key to inner peace is learning to let every experience flow through you. Don't block it, don't resist it, and don't let it get stuck. Accept it, deal with it, and move on. That's how you free yourself from inner suffering. Here's the simple truth. Energy from life flows into you, but when you resist it, especially when it comes with pain, it gets stuck inside. And here's the key point. If you store it as pain, it stays pain. Someone once asked me, Why does it have to stay pain? Well, think of it this way. If you put something red into a cup and come back days later, it's still red. Why? Because that's how you stored it. Pain doesn't magically turn into love or joy just because time has passed. It stays the way you stored it. So, when old, painful memories or experiences come back up, how do you feel? Excited? Relieved? Do you say, "Oh, I'm so glad this pain is back. I missed it"? Of course not. You didn't like it when it first happened, and you definitely don't like it when it resurfaces. That's how psychological pain works. Psychological pain is made up of events from the past that you couldn't handle at the time, so you resisted them. Instead of letting them pass through, you pushed them away, and now they're stored inside you. The problem is, they don't stay buried forever. Certain situations, words, or even random events can trigger those old wounds, bringing the pain back up. It feels just as bad the second time as it did the first, because you never actually dealt with it. What do most people do about this? They try to control everything around them to avoid triggering that pain. Life becomes a constant effort to keep things from touching those sensitive spots. For example, maybe you've heard someone say, "We don't talk about that around Dad." Why? Because Dad has unresolved stuff from his past, and if it's brought up, he can't handle it. The entire family tiptoes around those topics to avoid upsetting him. That's not sensitivity. That's stored pain dictating how people live. And here's the thing. This stored pain tries to come out all the time. It doesn't just show up in daily life. It can even appear in your dreams. This is because the energy you blocked is still in you, and it's trying to free itself. Psychology is amazing because it helps us understand how this works. But if you go a little deeper, you realize something even more profound. You don't have to live this way. It's true that physical pain is natural. If you stub your toe, your nerves send a signal to your brain. But psychological pain, that's different. That's something you created because you couldn't handle the reality of what happened. Here's an example. Let's say you were in love, got married, and everything seemed wonderful. But then things went wrong. Maybe both of you made mistakes, and the relationship fell apart. If you're healthy, you can look back and say, "It was what it was. It didn't work out, but I'm okay now." That's adaptability. You handled the reality of what happened and you moved on. But if you're not adaptable, the pain of that breakup stays inside you. Every time something reminds you of it, whether it's a song, a place, or a random comment, it comes back, and you feel that same hurt all over again. Instead of adapting to reality, you're stuck fighting against it. Charles Darwin taught us that survival depends on adaptability. Species that adapt to their environment survive. It's the same with us. Emotional health comes from being able to adapt to life as it happens. But many of us aren't adaptable. We can only handle the parts of life we like. If something reminds us of past pain, we resist it all over again. So the question is, how adaptable are you to reality? Can you let life flow through you, or do you resist it and store the pain inside? True health is being able to face life as it is, not as you wish it were. That's what it means to truly live in peace. Someone once asked me, "What is spiritual evolution?" The answer is simple. Spiritual evolution is about adapting on the inside so you can handle reality, just like physical evolution is about adapting on the outside to survive. Think about Darwin's theory of evolution. Species that couldn't adapt to their environment didn't survive. They're not here anymore. The species that could adapt, They're the ones that made it. Humans are supposed to be the most adaptable species. Look at us. We can live in deserts, rainforests, freezing cold, or even outer space. We can eat all kinds of diets, from vegetarian to, believe it or not, breatharian. Yes, there are people who claim to live on just air. We've proven we can adapt to almost any external condition. But what about adapting on the inside? That's spiritual evolution. It's learning to handle the reality of life, both inside and out. We are all shaped by our experiences, every single one of them. But here's the catch. No two people have the same experiences, not even your closest loved ones. Your husband, your kids, your best friend. They all see life differently from you because they've lived differently from you. Can you adapt to the truth? Can you accept that no one sees the world exactly as you do, and that they never will? Or do you sit there in frustration, saying things like, "How could they do that? I would never do that. I would never say that." The truth is, if you had lived their life, if you'd gone through their experiences, maybe you would have done the exact same thing. This is what it means to wake up to reality. Spiritual growth is about letting go of the resistance to life being what it is. If you keep pushing away what you don't like, whether it's people, situations, or even your own emotions, you'll become more and more sensitive. And that sensitivity will make it even harder for you to handle life because everything will feel like it's pressing on your unhealed pain. Think about suffering for a moment. Suffering happens because at some point you couldn't handle the reality of a situation. Instead of dealing with it, you stored the pain inside. You didn't have to store it, but you did because you couldn't process it in the moment. Now, because of that stored pain, you feel the need to control everything outside of you to avoid triggering those old wounds. And it's not just pain we store. We also hold on to the nice moments, the times when life felt wonderful. But let's be honest, how often do those moments come up compared to the things that bother you? When was the last time you got excited because the traffic lights were red? Or when the driver in front of you drove perfectly? Do you call your friends to rave about how the lights were timed so beautifully, or how a stranger smiled at you? Probably not. But if the lights frustrate you, if the driver in front of you forgets to use their blinker, that's a different story, isn't it? Suddenly, you're upset, ranting about it to anyone who will listen. Why? Because you need the world to be exactly how you want it to be for you to feel okay. And let's face it, most of the time, it's not. Sometimes, though, life aligns perfectly. You meet someone, and they're amazing. Or a situation unfolds just the way you hoped it would. For a moment, everything feels great. But guess what? It doesn't last. Life keeps moving because it's made up of millions of moments, and not all of them will go your way. This is why spiritual evolution is so important. It's about becoming adaptable to all of life, not just the parts you like. It's about realizing that resistance, whether to people, situations, or emotions, only creates suffering. And the sooner you stop resisting and start adapting, the freer you'll feel. So, laugh at the absurdity of it all. Life is messy, unpredictable, and often inconvenient. But it's also beautiful when you stop fighting it and learn to let it flow through you. That's spiritual evolution, learning to live fully without resistance. Here's the reality. Most of us live our lives trying to control everything around us. Why? Because inside, we've stored a bunch of painful experiences we don't want to feel again, and a few nice ones we're desperate to repeat. So we go out into the world trying to manipulate it, making sure the bad stuff doesn't happen, and the good stuff does. Sound familiar? It's exhausting, isn't it? And all of this comes from fear. Fear that something unpleasant will happen. Fear that we'll be rejected, that we won't look good enough, or that we won't measure up. So we stay busy. We work hard to protect ourselves, trying to say the right things, look the right way, and earn the right amount of money. It's like every person you meet is someone you have to win over. You want them to like you, to accept you. Why? Because rejection stings. It touches the pain you've stored inside, and you'll do anything to avoid that. Even the good things become a problem. When something wonderful happens, we cling to it. We want it to happen again. But it never feels the same the second time, does it? Let's say someone surprises you by saying something so heartfelt it melts your heart. It's beautiful because you didn't expect it. You were open, and the moment just hit you. But then what happens? You want them to say it again. And if they do, it's not the same. You compare it to the first time, and it falls short. Now you're disappointed. This happens because life can never be exactly the same as it was before. The first time, there was no expectation, no baggage. But when you try to repeat the experience, your mind gets in the way, and it's never as good. Think about it. If someone praised you every single day since kindergarten, wouldn't it eventually lose its magic? That's how life works. The more you experience something you like, the less you care about it over time. It's called the law of diminishing returns. The thrill fades because you're no longer fully present to it. You've already attached your expectations and stored your memories. So, trying to hold on to the good things doesn't work. And avoiding the bad things? That doesn't work either. The bad stuff you're trying to dodge is just old pain you stored inside because you couldn't handle it at the time. Both strategies, chasing the good and avoiding the bad, keep you stuck in the past. You're not living in the present moment. This is why spirituality tells us there's another way to live. It's not about coping with life or managing it. It's about waking up to what's really going on inside of you. It's about understanding that you're participating in this cycle of holding on to what you like and rejecting what you don't. And that cycle is what creates your suffering. What if you stopped storing every little thing that bothers you? What if you stopped clinging to every experience that makes you happy? Someday, you'll realize that clinging to the good is just as limiting as resisting the bad. Why? Because life keeps moving. It's not meant to repeat itself. Instead of trying to control everything, you can choose to be here now. You can honor this moment for what it is, unique, fleeting, and miraculous. Think about it. You're alive in this vast universe, on a planet that could fit 1.3 million times inside the sun, in a galaxy so enormous we can barely comprehend it. And yet, we get caught up worrying about whether someone used their turn signal in traffic. When you really stop and see the bigger picture, you realize how small your daily frustrations are. Science even backs this up. Quantum physics has shown us that reality isn't what we think it is. Everything is just energy, waves of light appearing as solid matter. And yet here we are, getting upset over things that at their core don't even exist the way we think they do. Life is so much bigger than our little worries and desires. Spirituality invites you to step out of the cycle of clinging and resisting and into the beauty of the present moment. It's not about making everything go your way. It's about appreciating life exactly as it is. That's where freedom begins. Your mind is capable of doing much greater things than making you miserable. Instead of spending your energy worrying about what you want or don't want, or how to control and manipulate situations, you can use your mind for higher purposes. Too often, we get caught up in this endless loop, feeling upset when we don't get what we want, or anxious about whether we'll get it next time. Does anyone here worry? Of course you do. You're worried about something you didn't like happening again, or not being able to experience something you loved in the past. But here's the thing. You don't have to live like this. That's what spirituality is about. And that's why we have these conversations. To remind you that life doesn't have to feel this hard. You can live a beautiful, fulfilling life without constantly struggling inside. Sure, physical pain is real, and it deserves care and attention. We should do our best to stay healthy and support one another through it. But psychological pain, that's different. It's something we create for ourselves. It comes from dividing the world into what we like and what we don't like, into things we want to happen and things we want to avoid. And when life doesn't go the way we want, we feel disappointed, even depressed, thinking it'll never get better. She loved me, but now she's gone, and no one will ever love me like that again. Or we wake up scared every day, obsessed with preventing something bad from happening. We let our lives revolve around fear and avoidance, trying to protect the most fragile parts of ourselves, the parts that couldn't handle reality when we were younger. Over time, we end up shaping our entire lives around avoiding pain. For example, some people refuse to visit places tied to bad memories because it's too painful. Therapists sometimes even suggest moving to a new town to avoid constant reminders of a difficult past. While that might feel like a logical solution, it doesn't truly address the problem. The real issue is sensitivity. If we're overly sensitive, avoiding things won't fix it. So, what's the solution? Imagine this. What if you could live without psychological suffering? Not just that. What if every single morning you woke up excited to be alive? Imagine waking up feeling energized and ready to face whatever the day brings. Not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you're open to the adventure of it. Can you embrace the uncertainty of life and still feel joy? Now, you might wonder, but what if someone says something hurtful? What if something happens that feels uncomfortable? The question isn't whether life will challenge you. It's whether you can be open enough to let reality unfold without breaking you. Can you be so open, so free, that you can fit the whole of reality inside you, no matter what it brings? People often ask, what if someone you love dies? You can't be happy about that. And they're right. It's not about feeling happy, but you can honor, respect, and appreciate the pain that comes with that loss. The sorrow you feel is a reflection of love. It's your heart saying, I loved you deeply, and now I miss you. That pain comes from the same place as love, and it's worth respecting. Just because it's not a pleasant feeling doesn't mean it's not meaningful. It's a profound, deep experience. Think of Chopin's Funeral March. It's a masterpiece, capturing the essence of sorrow through music. The vibration of that piece is low and heavy, but it's beautiful in its own way. Compare it to something like Rite of Spring, which has a much higher energy. Both are extraordinary and both deserve honor. Why can't we treat life's emotions the same way? Why can't we appreciate the full spectrum of experiences, both the highs and the lows, and let them move through us? Feeling sorrow doesn't mean you have to laugh, but it does make you richer. It deepens you. If no one you loved had ever passed away, you wouldn't understand the depth of life. Loss teaches you things you couldn't learn otherwise. People who've faced loss are more whole because they've experienced something profound. That's true for every kind of challenge. For instance, if someone's child got into trouble at school, like being caught with drugs and expelled, that's a tough experience. But it's also a unique, special one. Did you grow from it? Did your child grow from it? Life hands you these experiences for a reason. How you respond to challenges matters. If you honor and accept the situation you're facing, you can see it as something chosen for you, as an opportunity to grow. People often talk about karma like it's a punishment, but that's not what karma is. Karma is a teacher. When life gives you something difficult, it's teaching you how to handle those challenges. If you learn from it, you grow. And when you look back on those moments, instead of feeling regret or shame, you can say, thank you. Sometimes people dwell on their mistakes or think they're doomed by bad karma. Don't do that. Don't let guilt hold you back. Just keep learning and growing. That's the purpose of life, to evolve by handling reality. If you didn't handle things well in the past, don't judge yourself for it. Maybe you weren't as aware or mature back then. The things you did as a child, a teenager, or even a young adult, they may not have been good, but they taught you something. If you can look back and feel grateful for the lessons, you've grown. The only time karma becomes an issue is if you look back and say, I'd do that again without a second thought. But if you look back and think, I can't believe I did that, I've changed, then you've already learned. So don't feel guilty about your past. Feel thankful for how far you've come. When you learned algebra, you were preparing yourself to understand calculus, even if you didn't realize it. Maybe you struggled with math in 5th grade, but eventually became a math professor. The point is, don't judge yourself by where you were in the past. Instead, recognize how much growth is possible. Look at what we do to ourselves mentally. We overthink, create doubts, and fill our minds with unnecessary baggage. That clutter? We build it ourselves. Instead, approach every day fresh. Wake up and say, all right, let's refocus. Life will bring challenges, guaranteed. You can't avoid them. Now, you might wonder, don't I control things? But let's be real. Your body consists of 25 to 30 trillion living cells. Your liver, pancreas, nerves, and every part of you. Did you create any of them? Did you decide how they'd work? No, you didn't. You play a tiny role in all of this, yet you think you're in charge. That's your ego talking. Some people are naturally gifted, smarter, taller, more athletic. Did they make themselves that way? Number. Those talents, just like your body and mind, are gifts. You didn't decide to have emotions or create feelings. They were given to you. So start your day with gratitude. Say thank you for this body, this mind, this life. Think about your cells working around the clock to keep you alive. When was the last time you thanked them instead of complaining when something went wrong? Growing spiritually means stepping outside your head, letting go of the things you like or dislike, which are just ideas shaped by your past. It's about living fully in the present. Look around and think, wow, I'm on Earth, a planet full of life and possibilities. Would you really prefer Mars, with its lifeless dirt and empty landscapes? We sent robots to Mars, and they dug little ditches in the soil. It was so dull, they named the ditches things like Snow White. Meanwhile, here you are on the most incredible planet in the universe. Earth is like the ultimate theme park, always something happening, always something to experience. So why not live like that? Why let old fears and pain weigh you down? Stop rejecting reality because it doesn't fit your expectations. Life isn't about bending reality to your will. It's about honoring it, respecting it, and appreciating the wild, intricate, and awe-inspiring ride it offers. Every single moment is extraordinary if you let yourself see it. The fact that you have a mind, a heart, and a body, and that other people do too, is incredible. The fact that you can communicate, think, and feel is beyond amazing. Every second of your life should leave you in awe. Why? Because you've stepped outside the mindset of, I can't handle this, so I need to obsess over it. Think about it. Most of your life, you've resisted reality. From childhood to high school and beyond, you've clung to what you wanted and pushed away what you didn't. Both the clinging and resisting got stored inside you, shaping the version of you that you now believe you are. If you want to grow spiritually, really grow, stop doing that. When you stop resisting, you free yourself from carrying all that stored baggage. Without it, you naturally live in the present. You see the world as it is, not as your mind fears or wishes it to be. Take something simple, the heat on a sunny day. Instead of complaining, think, I'm feeling the warmth of a star, our sun, from 93 million miles away. That's mind-blowing. Imagine being this close to a massive burning star and being able to feel its heat and light. Why doesn't that amaze us every day? This shift in thinking is what yoga calls using your great mind. Instead of staying stuck in your personal mind, the part that holds on to past experiences and creates stories about who you are, you use your evolved, impersonal mind. You think beyond yourself. Possums can't marvel at the sun, but you can. Let's put this into perspective. When someone asks, "What did you do today?" Don't just say, "Oh, I worked, ate, and slept." Say, "I spun once on Earth's axis, and at the end of the year, I took a full lap around the sun." That's what's really happening, and it's extraordinary. Life isn't about rejecting what's happening because it doesn't match what you want. It's about fully engaging with life because you're already okay. When you're filled with love and joy, you interact with the world from that place. If you're not feeling that joy and beauty, it's because you've buried it under all the stuff you've stored inside. Fears, doubts, and unresolved experiences. When you cling to these things, they darken your perspective, like wearing tinted glasses that make the world seem bleak. To grow, you have to stop storing this emotional garbage. That's what the great spiritual teachers meant by purification, letting go of those mental and emotional blockages. Start small. Don't dive into your biggest fears right away. They'll feel overwhelming. Begin with little things you resist, things that don't really matter, but you resist them anyway. As you practice a letting go of these smaller resistances, you'll notice a change. Your view of life will brighten, and the beauty that's always been inside you will start shining through. And that's where the real growth happens. Let's say it's raining, and you don't want it to rain. You start grumbling, "Why is it raining now? It shouldn't rain when I don't want it to." But think about what rain does. It helps crops grow, so there's food in the grocery store. Rain doesn't happen because you want it or don't want it. It just happens. Instead of resisting it, why not appreciate it? This same lesson applies to other little things. Someone walks by and you say, "Hi, Rose." but she doesn't respond. You start thinking, did I do something wrong? Is she mad at me? When, in reality, she probably didn't hear you because she had earbuds in. Let it go. If you hold on to every little slight, every irritation, you fill yourself with negativity. But when you learn to let things go, you free yourself. You can start small, letting go of the rain, the driver cutting you off, or the red light that makes you late. These are tiny things, and when you stop clinging to them, you practice the art of letting go. Over time, you'll face bigger challenges. Maybe Rose hears you but says, I don't have time for you right now. That stings, and your mind starts spinning. Why did she dismiss me? What did I do wrong? But what if you just let it go? Don't carry that moment with you. If you hold on to it, you're adding another burden to yourself, another samskara, another emotional knot inside. Letting go doesn't just help you, it helps others too. When you release your grudges, frustrations, and negativity, you create space for peace and understanding. This is a skill, just like practicing a sport. You don't become a pro overnight, but the more you practice, the better you get. Start with the little things, the skunks, the rain, the red lights, and build your strength. Over time, you'll find that letting go becomes natural, and with it, you'll feel lighter, freer, and more at peace with the world around you. Think about playing an instrument. The more you practice, the better you get. The same goes for letting go and handling life. Start small with the little annoyances, and over time, you'll improve without even realizing it. One day, something big might happen, but instead of it bothering you, you'll notice that it didn't stick with you. You might even say, wow, I didn't even realize that would have upset me before. I guess I'm growing. Yes, that's growth. That's progress. So, make letting go your practice. I dare you to give it a try. Now, let's be real. There will be moments when you can't let go. You'll try, but it won't work. You'll keep replaying the situation in your head, maybe even dream about it, and wake up still feeling upset. Guess what? That's okay. It just means you've hit something you're not ready to handle yet. Don't judge yourself or get frustrated. Instead, think of it like a tennis match. I thought I could hit the ball over the net, but it didn't make it this time. That's fine. I'll keep practicing and I'll get better. This is how you should approach every single day. Every morning when you wake up, aim to be a little better than you were the day before. Each day is a chance to grow, to let go, and to transform into a stronger, freer version of yourself. As you get better at handling your day-to-day experiences, something interesting will happen. The deeper stuff, the old wounds, memories, and emotions you've buried will start to surface. Why? Because you're no longer piling new junk on top of it. Here's the thing. If you can't even handle a simple moment like Rose brushing you off when you say hello, how are you supposed to deal with the things that happened years ago? But as you practice letting go of the small stuff, you'll create space for the deeper layers to come up. And when they do, don't panic. This is a good thing. You might find yourself crying out of nowhere, thinking about something that happened decades ago. Don't see this as a setback, it's progress. That old pain is coming out because it no longer belongs in you. It's been blocking your natural energy, your Shakti, the vibrant life force within you. When you clear that space, you'll feel more alive, more loving, and more at peace. Think of it like closing the blinds in a room. The light is always there, you just shut it out. When you stop closing the blinds, When you stop holding on to all that negativity and pain, the light comes pouring back in. Yes, this process can be uncomfortable. Growth often is. But it's worth it. Just like a mother goes through the pain of childbirth to bring a new life into the world, you're going through soul birth. You're birthing a new version of yourself, one that is freer, lighter, and more connected to the beauty of life. So don't get discouraged when the past comes up, or when you feel like you've taken a step backward. That's part of the journey. Keep going, and soon you'll notice the weight lifting. You'll feel more love, more beauty, and more joy than you ever thought possible. Life is a beautiful experience, but only when you stop living it through the lens of stored pain and psychological suffering. Let go of the baggage and you'll stop suffering. Instead, you'll have deep, rich, and meaningful experiences. But at the end of the day, the message is simple. You have the power to transform your life by letting go of what no longer serves you. Listen to this and make the choice to grow. Life isn't meant to be endured. It's meant to be lived fully with love, freedom, and wonder. Thank you for listening.